The Zeppelin-Staaken R.VI was one of the most extraordinary aircraft of the First World War and represented one of the earliest serious attempts at long-range strategic bombing. Developed in Germany by the Zeppelin-Staaken Company and entering service in 1917, it was the most successful of the massive Riesenflugzeug, or giant aircraft series, built for the German Imperial Air Service. At a time when most combat aircraft were small, fragile biplanes with limited payload and range, the R.VI stood out as a technological giant, both literally and conceptually. It was conceived to carry heavy bomb loads over long distances, including raids against England, demonstrating a vision of warfare that anticipated the large-scale bomber offensives of the Second World War. Approximately 18 examples were completed, making it the most numerous of the German R-planes, though production remained limited due to the enormous cost, complexity, and industrial effort required to build each unit. From a technical perspective, the R.VI was immense for its era. It had a wingspan of about 42 meters and a length of roughly 22 meters, dimensions comparable to some heavy bombers of the 1940s. The aircraft was a multi-bay biplane of wooden construction, reinforced with wire bracing, reflecting the structural limitations of early aviation materials. It featured a fixed undercarriage with multiple wheels to distribute its considerable weight during takeoff and landing. Power was provided by 4 liquid-cooled inline engines, typically Maybach Mb.IVa or Mercedes D.IVa units, arranged in tandem pairs within nacelles mounted between the wings. Each nacelle housed 2 engines, one driving a tractor propeller and the other a pusher propeller, a configuration that avoided the need for complex gearbox systems and allowed mechanics to access the engines during flight for maintenance, an extraordinary feature that reflected both innovation and necessity. The aircraft could reach a maximum speed of approximately 130 to 135 kilometers per hour, had a service ceiling of over 4,000 meters, and an operational range that allowed missions of several hundred kilometers, enabling raids on distant strategic targets. The crew typically consisted of 7 to 10 men, including pilots, engineers, radio operators, and gunners. The internal layout was relatively advanced for the period, with enclosed cockpit positions that offered some protection from wind and cold at altitude. Communication between crew members was facilitated by internal walkways and speaking tubes. The defensive armament consisted of multiple 7.92 mm machine guns mounted in various positions around the fuselage and wings to provide nearly all-around coverage against enemy fighters. Some versions even featured a dorsal gun position placed unusually high above the fuselage to improve defensive arcs. In terms of offensive capability, the R.VI could carry a bomb load of up to around 2,000 kilograms, including very large individual bombs of 1,000 kilograms, an impressive capacity for 1917. The bombs were carried internally, which improved aerodynamic efficiency compared to externally mounted loads typical of smaller bombers. When compared to its contemporaries, the R.VI occupied a unique niche. German twin-engine bombers, such as the Gotha G series, were more numerous and easier to operate, but carried significantly smaller bomb loads. On the Allied side, British heavy bombers like the Handley Page O-100 and later O-400 were formidable machines, yet generally smaller and less ambitious in scale than the R.VI. The Russian Ilya Muromets had pioneered the concept of a large multi-engine bomber earlier in the war, but the R.VI surpassed it in size and payload capacity. However, this superiority in scale came with drawbacks. The aircraft was slow, logistically demanding, and required large airfields and substantial ground support. As a result, missions were usually conducted at night to reduce vulnerability to interception. Although the psychological impact of its raids was considerable, the overall strategic effect was limited due to the small number of aircraft available and the relatively modest accuracy of bombing technology at the time. Despite its limited wartime impact, the Zeppelin-Staaken R.VI holds significant historical importance. It demonstrated that very large multi-engine aircraft could be built, operated and used in sustained combat roles. The operational experience gained in managing large crews, coordinating multiple engines, handling heavy payloads, and conducting long-range navigation contributed to the evolving doctrine of strategic air power. In many ways, the R-6 foreshadowed later heavy bombers, such as the British four-engine bombers of the Second World War and American designs like the B-17 and B-29, not in direct lineage, but in conceptual ambition. It embodied the transition from tactical battlefield aviation to the idea of striking an enemy's industrial and civilian infrastructure deep behind the front lines. As such, the Zeppelin-Staaken R.VI remains a landmark in the early history of military aviation, a symbol of both the ingenuity and the limitations of early 20th century aeronautical engineering.